Hey, what's going on everybody? It's your bro here. Hope you're doing well. And in this video, I'm going to teach you guys how we can create some labels in Java. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. If you find this video helpful, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support will help keep this channel running. Okay, people, so let's discuss labels. A label is a GUI component. It functions like a display area for a string of text, an image, or even both. So before we begin, we'll need a frame so we can add a label to the frame because a label is a component. So we'll need to be sure to create a frame. I'm just going to paste what I have here from the last lesson. So jframe frame equals new frame, frame.setDefaultClose operation, jframe exit on close, set a size, I just picked 500 by 500, and frame.setVisible to true. And then we'll just need this import as well. So how do we create a label? Well, that's a good question. It's very similar to what we did with our jframe. So instead of saying jframe frame equals new frame, we can instead say jlabel. We can call this label equals new jlabel. We can set some string of text, an image, or both. But we'll need an import as well, so let's include that. I'm just going to be adding imports as we go along. So let's set the text for the label. So we can do that using the label.setText function, and then we can set some text. So maybe I'll say, bro, do you even code? So there's two different ways that you can set text for a label. You can either use the setText method. Otherwise, what you could do, let's say that we delete this. When you create an instance of your label, you can just pass in some text like this. But I'll just do this on a different line for now, just for teaching purposes. So what this will do is set text of label, and this will create a label. So now what we need to do is actually add the label to the frame, and this is a very easy step to forget about. So we'll type in frame.add, and what do we want to add? So you can see that it's suggesting a component. We're going to add our label, and then we're going to compile this and run this. So here's our string of text. Bro, do you even code? So normally with our label, with how our layout manager is for our frame, it's using a border layout. So it likes to take strings or images, and it likes to center it and put it on the left-hand side, but we'll change that later. So let's begin next by creating an image icon so we can add an image to this label. So let's create an image icon, image icon, and I have a picture that I want to use. I call it dude.png. So I would like to add this image to my label as well as my text. So I'm going to create a name for this image. I'll just call it image. Image icon image equals new image icon. And then we can put a file path here or a file name if it's within the same folder. So this is in the same project folder as my Java file here. So this is dude.png. And then we'll need an import for this too. So then we're going to set the icon for this label. So label.setIcon. And you can see that it's asking for an icon. Luckily, our image is an icon. So we'll put image here and then run this again. So here's our image. Well, it's an image icon and our text. Now let's take a closer examination of our label. With Java's Swing graphical user interface, it likes to take a string of text and put it on the right-hand side of your image when creating a label. So we can actually move the string of text around relative to the image. This is how we can do that. There's two functions to help us with that. That is set horizontal text position and set vertical text position. Let's begin by setting the horizontal text position. So we're going to take label.set horizontal text position, and we can pass in a constant. So there's three options that we can use really to help us with this. They are jlabel.left, center, or right. Let's say that I want to put this in the center. That would be jlabel.center. So now, when we run this, our text is going to be overlapping our image. So by default, horizontal text position will put the text on the right. So if you want this centered, you would use jlabel.center. Otherwise, you can use jlabel.left if you want this on the left. So the options for this would be set text left, center, or right of image icon. So then let's set the vertical text position. So that is label.set vertical text position. And we have top, center, or bottom. So let's set this to jlabel.top. And then our text is going to be to the center and above our image. So this will set text top, center, or bottom of image icon. Okay guys, let's get a little crazy. Let's change the font color as well as the font styling of the string of text of our label. So let's begin with the font color, and we can use the label.setForeground method to do that for us. We can pass in a color, and there's a few constants that you can use. So let's say that we want green. We can say color.green. Alternatively, what you could do, if you want a more customized color, is that you can pass in a new color, and you can set the RGB values, or you can set a hex value here. So if you're using hex color values, if you want green, that would be 0x00FF00. So now the font color of our text is now green. What if you want to change the font styling? Well, there is a method that will do that for you. So that is label.setFont, and we can pass in a new font, kind of like what we did with our new color. So let's create a new font. We can set the type of font that we want. So one of my personal favorites is MV Bully, but use whatever font that you personally want. And we can set the styling if it's plain, bold, underline, italic. So there's a few constants for this. So font dot, and you can pick one of these. I'll just set this to plain. And then you can set a size. So I will pick 20. So then after compiling and running this, the font is now changed for the text of our label. So this will set font of text, and this will set font color of text. Here's another useful method. There is a set icon text gap where you can adjust how far away your text is from your image. So let's try that. So label.set icon text gap, and we place an integer number within here. So if I set this to, let's say 100, there is going to be a fairly large gap between our text and our image. You can also set this to a negative number, and you can pull things in closer. So if I set this to -25, now our text is very close to our image. So this will set gap of text to image. Now let's change the background color. So we're going to use the label.setBackgroundColor method, and we can pass in a color. I'm just going to use a constant this time. So let's say black. Color.black. Like that. All right, so this will set the background color. However, let's take a look to see what happens. So the color does not really necessarily change. There is another method that we have to follow this up with, and that is the label.setOpaque method, and we're going to set this to true. So if true, the component, our label, paints every pixel within its bounds. So basically, to display the background color, you need to set opaque to true. So this will display background color. So now this should be black. So our label is not just this little section. The label likes to take up as much room as possible. Even if we were to expand this window, the label is going to expand as well. Later on, I'll show you a few ways that we can limit the size of this label if you want to place this label specifically somewhere within your frame. But for now, there's a few different methods where we can move the contents of the label around. So right now, this entire area is the label because the label likes to take up as much room as possible. Even if we were to resize this, the entire thing is our label, and I'll prove it to you by setting the border color. So first we'll actually need a border. So I'm going to create a border right after we create our image icon. So we'll type in border, border equals border factory. I misspelled factory. Let me fix that. Border factory dot create, and there's a few borders that you can pick from. I'm just going to pick a simple line border, and we can set this to a color. So maybe color dot green, and then you can set a border width. So I will pick 3. 3 sounds good. So then we'll probably need an import too. So import border dot border, I guess. All right, so then let's set the border for this label. So label dot set border, and we're going to use the border that we created. It's just called border. So then after running this, the border of our label is now green. So it's not just this little area with our text and our image. The label likes to take up as much room as possible, and you can see that with the border. So one trick that you have available to you is that you can move the text as well as the image around within the label. So by default, it likes to be in the center vertically and to the left horizontally. So we can change where this text and this image is placed within the label. So we can move this to maybe the right side, maybe to the top, to the bottom, one of the corners. This is how we can do that. So we're going to use label dot set vertical alignment if we want to change the vertical positioning within the label. So we'll set a constant, JLabel dot, and we can pick either top, center, or bottom. So right now it's center. So let's try moving this to the top. So now this is in the top left of our label, the text as well as the image. But I think I'll keep this in the center because I want this to be in the middle. So this will set vertical position of icon plus text within label. And then we can do the same thing with set horizontal alignment. So label dot set horizontal alignment, and it's either, let's see, left, center, or right. So I'm just going to set this to center. So label dot center. So now this text and image will always stay in the center of our label, even if we were to resize this frame. So this will set horizontal position of icon plus text within label. Now you're probably thinking that it's kind of stupid that the label is taking up the entire frame. Well, that's because of the default layout manager that we're using. So one thing that we can do, at least until we get to the lesson on layout managers, is that we can set the layout manager that we're using to null, and then we can manually set the size and the placement of this label so it won't really take up the entire frame that we have. So let's take our frame, not the label, frame dot set layout, and for the layout manager that we're going to use, normally with the default it's border layout. Let's set this to null. And then when we run this, it doesn't display anything. Well, that's because now we have to set the bounds for the label. So we're going to set where we want this label placed, the X coordinates as well as the Y coordinates, and the dimensions of this label. So let's add label dot set bounds. So we have to pass in a value for X, Y, the width, and the height. So for X, let's say 0, Y is 0 for the width. Let's make this 250, and the height 250 as well. And then let's take a look at this. So you can see that with our label, it places the top left corner of our label where we set the X and Y positioning to. So 0, 0 is the top left of our frame, and it also set a size for our label, so 250 by 250. If we were to change the size of our label, let's say 350 by 350, well, this label is going to expand in size. However, it still likes to stick to the top left corner because we set the coordinates to be 0, 0. So let's change the coordinates as well, but I will change this back to maybe 250 by 250. And then let's say X is now 100. So now the positioning for this label will move on the x-axis to the right by 100 pixels. And if I set y to maybe 100, well then this is going to be also pushed down by 100 pixels. And then if we were to resize our frame, this is actually going to stay in the same place. So use what works for you, what you want for your program. So this will set X and Y position within frame as well as dimensions. Now, I have one last trick for you guys that you might find very useful, and that is the use of the pack functions of frames. So to demonstrate this, I need to get rid of our set bounds method that we have for our label. I'll just turn this into a comment, and the same thing with frame.setLayout. We'll just use the default layout manager that we have, and the method is called frame.pack. It's the pack method of frames. So what this does is that this will resize the size of the frame to accommodate all of the components that you have. So after running this, actually we don't even really necessarily need a size for the frame. The size of the frame will adjust to fit all of the components that you have, and then you can resize this if you want to. Otherwise, you can use set resizable false if you don't want people to resize this. So if we were to actually expand the size of the components within the label, such as the text size, so let's say that I want this to be 50, well, the size of the frame, since we're using the pack method, is going to adjust to accommodate the size of whatever's within the label. So that's something that you might find useful, but however you might like to use the set bounds method or the default layout manager, it depends on what you want for your program, but you have options. Oh, and I forgot to mention this, if you're going to use the pack method, make sure that you add all of your components before using pack. Otherwise, this doesn't work, so I'll prove it to you. So we're going to pack and then add our label. So you can see that it doesn't work, we just get this little tiny box. So make sure that you add all the components and then pack. Well, that's the basics of creating labels in Java. If you want a copy of all this code, I'll post all of this in the comments down below. But yeah, that's how to create labels in Java. Hey you. Yeah, I'm talking to you. If you learned something new, then you can help me help you in 3 easy steps by smashing that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe if you'd like to become a fellow bro.